Om Namasri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. So, a hearty welcome to all of you. So, this is our third class. First, we had a brief introduction to Raj Yoga and the introduction of Swami Vivekananda. This is the third part. So, I'll just recapitulate what we said. Swami Vivekananda said, just as any other science, the science of Raj Yoga or the science of the mind, the science of psychology, is also a definite science with the same methods that we normally use in physical sciences. But just as in physical sciences, we have an instrument or instruments to study different phenomena which are external. In the science of the mind, we have instruments, but they are not external. They are our own internal mechanisms, which is known as the lower mind. So you have to partition, as it were, our own mind into two, manas and buddhi. So Raj Yoga says, you use some part of the mind to study itself. There is no other instrument. You can't use an external instrument to study your mind. Only you can know your mind. How can you know your own mind? Because your mind is thinking all the time. But our mind has a capacity to observe itself. Now, for that you need some silence, some meditation, some quiet atmosphere around you. And if you focus, then you can observe how many thoughts are coming in your mind. Some of them are thoughts of anger, some of them can be thoughts of, say, jealousy or some other evil thought may come. But at the same time, compassionate thoughts. And you understand that your state of mind now is a happy state of mind. Sometimes it is not so happy, it is painful. There's so many painful thoughts, painful memories that are coming. So all these things happen, and if we stand aside a part of the mind, which is known as buddhi or the higher mind, stands aside. When we start our Raj Yoga practice, what happens is a very good part, a higher part of our mind develops that capacity to study the lower part of the mind. So there are two entities. One is the instrument with which mind itself is an instrument to study our own mind. So you think, and a portion of your mind, which is known as buddhi, stands aside and watches your own mind. So what happens? Raj Yoga says, you will discover many innermost secrets of your own mind. Now when we go for a mystery adventure, we say go to explore a cave. We do not know what is there in the cave. So when we try to explore, we unravel many new secrets. Similarly, we hardly know our mind totally. So many times we think our mind is fine, our mind is under control, and everything is fine. But suddenly you will find that there are many hidden memories, hidden secrets which we have inherited from our previous lives. Because Patanjali, like all other systems of Hinduism, accepts the fact that there are many thoughts which have fossilized in our brain or fossilized in our chitta. Chitta is also another part of the mind. As I told you, there are four parts of the mind. Manas means the reactive mind. Buddhi means the instrument through which you study the other parts of the mind. Then there is chitta, which is the store, you may say it is the storehouse of the mind. So you don't know what is there in the storeroom. You don't know what is there in the attic. You have locked it. So meditation or Raj Yoga helps you to open the mind, to open the secrets. So it reveals a lot of secrets which were not known to us. So Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda used to say that Sri Ramakrishna used to know the contents of our mind, which we ourselves did not know. When Swami Vivekananda, as Naren, went to Sri Ramakrishna for the first time, he said, Keshav has, if Keshav has one power, you have 18 powers and you will do wonderful work. Then, because he could see the internal structure of Naren's mind, which Naren himself had no access. So he thought, what is this person saying? Keshav Chandra Sen is such a great personality. He has traveled all over the world. He has started a big organization. And I am just a youth. But he did not know his own, he did not have the capacity to study his own mind, Naren. Whereas Sri Ramakrishna could see others' minds and know their capacities, because his mind was what they call in Vedanta the Hiranyagarbha, the universal mind. So in Vedanta there is a wonderful term which is known as the universal mind. So what do we mean by universal mind? Sri Ramakrishna could identify with that universal mind. So all the little parts of different people. See, our minds are parts of that universal mind, but we cannot study each other's mind. Forget others' mind. We can't even study our own mind unless we practice this Raj Yoga. Whereas for a Hiranyagarbha, from that state, for the universal mind, every mind he can not only see, but he can guide that person. Sri Ramakrishna could guide and lift that person from whatever state of mind he had. So he could see things in the mind, in the subconscious mind, in the chitta, in the manas, in the buddhi. Everything was clear to him like objects in a glass cupboard. He used to tell, I can see the contents of your mind as I see objects in a glass cupboard. Now, this is possible only if you raise your mind to the level of Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha is the universal mind. The subtle body, the sum total of the subtle bodies of all the jivas put together is known as Hiranyagarbha. And only a person, an incarnation or an avatara, can raise his mind and make it one with the universal mind. And that is how he can know the secrets of our mind, others' mind, and he can guide us. But for us, those who don't believe in incarnation, those who don't believe in a personal God, Patanjali says, don't worry, you can use your own mind to study your lower mind and your tendencies and become one with that Purusha. That is what Sankhya Yoga says. So Prakriti is made of several minds. We have small egos, we have our own chitta, we have the thoughts that come in the chitta, which is known as vritti. So Patanjali says, whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't matter. But if you believe there is a chitta, and if the vrittis that come, if you stop that, chitta vritti nirodha. So he defines yoga as yogaha chitta vritti nirodha. So all the thoughts that are bubbling up and giving us some identity, the personality that we are because of our thoughts. As Buddha said, you are what your thoughts are. You may be a physical body, but the identity, your peculiar identity, your unique identity is because of your mind more than your body. Body will just give you a physical shape, but it is the mind that decides who you are, whether you are a good man, a bad man, a man of control, or a man who is unable to control himself. So everything is decided by the mind. So that is why uh, Patanjali says, whether you believe in the grace of a universal mind, which comes now and then as avatars, which comes as prophets, which comes as great incarnations, you don't have to depend on him. This is a scientific method. You can study your own mind by following certain techniques which are known as Yoga Sutras. And Swami Vivekananda specifically decided to write a book because the Western people or most of the Western world had started disbelieving the very existence of God. They said, we don't need God. Prakriti has its own secret. Natural secrets can be studied by any scientist. If he is a chemist, he can go to the chemistry lab and try to find out. And so much research was done even in those days when Swamiji came to England. Science was progressing very fast. They thought, see, we have explanations. Why do we need to have a faith in a God or an incarnation or Son of God even? So people were losing faith in the church, they were losing faith in God, and many of them were becoming atheists and they were swearing by science. They used to say, the idea of God is a psychological delusion. We don't need a God to solve our problems. Just as we solve physical problems, the yogis say, you can solve your mental problems also, because here is a science. So that is why yoga stands the test of science. Now, Swamiji asks, just as you need some qualification to enter a laboratory or to even do graduation or post-graduation in science, you can't just go out of school and join a college. They will ask you, do you have the qualifications to become a scientist? You have to perform or you have to have certain discipline, pass certain exams, and then they'll say, now you are capable, you are qualified to enter the university, and then you can study physical sciences, chemical sciences. So does Raj Yoga also, because it is a science, Patanjali or Swami Vivekananda asks, based on the classification or the requirements listed by Patanjali, Swamiji says, who is eligible for this knowledge? Who is eligible to be admitted to the University of Yoga, of Patanjali's Yoga? Anybody and everybody cannot become a yogi. So you can't say that I can go from class 1 to do PhD in some university. You have to pass through all the stages. So, but this science is so liberal and so easy, you don't have to go, you don't need external instruments. Like if you want to study chemistry, you should have a very well-equipped laboratory to do research, even to do basic research. Whereas Patanjali says, or Swamiji says here in the introduction, here there is no need for any laboratory because your instrument is your own mind. You have it with you. Just use your mind. Just follow the steps which I am telling you. And then you will reach reality. You will get the result. So you don't have to have any other qualification, any other faith or belief. You see, that is why Swamiji wanted to put before the Western world a method which does not require you to have everyone, irrespective of his faith or belief, whether he believes in God, whether he believes in a Christian God, whether he believes in a Muslim God, or whether he believes in a Hindu God, or any God or goddesses for that matter, all are eligible. Even if he doesn't believe in a personal God, he is eligible. So if you believe in God, then also you can follow Patanjali Sutra. So there is no eligibility criteria that you have to be a Hindu or you have to be a particular, belong to a particular faith or belief. Then what are the other things, other qualifications? You should be ready for long time and constant practice. That is one qualification which is required. You can't say that I will get a PhD. Even to get a PhD, they'll say 5 years it takes minimum. you have to submit so many things. So even PhD has a time frame. But here, Patanjali says it is continuous practice. But he doesn't guarantee a time frame because he knows some people will have to work hard, some people may reach the goal earlier. So that depends on the kind of mind they have. Then he says some of the techniques are physical because Patanjali or the founder of the Yoga Sutras, he wrote a book on physical body also. People don't know this, but people think he just wrote a book on yoga. He wrote a book on physical aspect of the body also. So how to keep the body in proper order? Because that is why we find the science of asanas here. Asana, pranayama, they are all concerned with the body. So Swamiji says, the part of the training is physical, but mainly means step number 4 to 8, that is pratyahara, dharana, dhyana and samadhi. These are almost more than half deals with only the mind. This has to be made very clear that Raj Yoga is not, though it may begin, part of the training may be physical, asana may help, pranayama also may help, but they are just you may say partly physical, but most of it is mental. Even in pranayama, it is the mental attitude that is very important. The breathing technique is secondary, but what you do while breathing, how do you regulate your thoughts while you are breathing, these are also important. So that is why Swamiji gives a very simple technique that you have to imagine. See, this is all imagination because mind is the only instrument that we have. He said when you breathe in thoughts of purity. Because our goal is to make our minds pure. And when you breathe out, can you not imagine that you are breathing out all the impure things that you have? So though it is physical, you should not do it mechanically. Swamiji says, there is a mental element to pranayama also. That when you breathe in all the good thoughts, good purified, the purity that is around you. You don't breathe in bad thoughts. And when you breathe out, a strong imagination will help. That you see, when I breathe out, when I do this long pranayamas, 4 seconds, I breathe out. Then I use my mind to tell my lower mind that now whatever defects you have, whatever evil tendencies you have, every pranayama is that breath is throwing out those evil tendencies. So that way, Swamiji says, though it is physical, it is mostly mental, this yoga. Now, the reason he says, this is a very, very difficult concept to understand, especially for Western people who think mind is not material. It may be very difficult, but Patanjali says you can test it. You can test the fact that mind is nothing but finer matter. Otherwise, how can matter influence you? How can consuming certain intoxicants or you say some people get a kick when they drink coffee or smoke cigarettes. So if materials impact the mind and the mind also impacts the body. So mind is just finer. That is the logical conclusion. Swami Vivekananda says mind is nothing but finer part of the body. So they are apparently the connection, we think they are distinct things. We think we are the body and we have a mind. But the thing is, body and mind, the line of demarcation is very thin. You don't even realize. Now modern physics has confirmed this. They say, now the latest theory says, when you go deep into matter, try to find out what matters, what atoms, what these subatomic particles are. When you go deep into the research of quantum particles, very, very, very small particles, sometimes they observe that the particle vanishes. There is just energy or some field of energy. So they say whenever the field condenses, it becomes matter. So matter and force, they are, or matter and field as they call it. They don't say force, they call it a field. So it's a magnetic field, electric field. They are constantly changing. So what is matter now can become mind, what is mind can become matter. So Swami Vivekananda makes a wonderful statement. He says, Sri Krishna was all mind, he was not body. It's a tremendous statement to make. We saw he had a body, but at the same time he could convert himself. Body was there, the elements were there, but he had nothing to do with it. The mind could be withdrawn from the body, and the subtle part of the body, everything was under his control. So he says, as I saw Sri Krishna, especially when he was in Samadhi, his whole identity, personality got transformed into a universal mind, as if the body was something external. It is just like you wear shoes. As long as you are wearing shoes, shoes are part of your body. But when you remove your shoes, you don't lose your identity. So also Sri Krishna was very capable of just disconnecting from the body. So that shows the mind is a finer part of the body, and the finer always, this is a universal principle. So Patanjali first says, if the body is controlled, you can attempt to control the mind. So people, that's why give so much importance to asana, pranayama, but they forget that the reason why we do asana and pranayama is to steady the body so that we can focus more on the mind. But Patanjali also says it is vice versa. If you can control the mind, you can control the body. But for most of us, we start from the gross to the subtle, because we cannot control the subtle. Mind is not under our control. So they say, at least in the beginning, when you are in the kindergarten of religion, do a lot of asana, do a lot of pranayama, things that you can control. Since you cannot control the vagaries or the movement of the mind, at least control what you can control. So what is the easiest thing to control? You can't control your heartbeat, you can't control your other pranas. But one thing Patanjali found, that if you want to control prana, you control the breathing. It's not that breathing is only prana. Pranayama means control of all the 5 pranas. Some of them are responsible for digestion, some of them are responsible for nervous energies also. Some of them are responsible for many other functions, prana, samana, vyana, udana, for generating body heat. So there are many pranas, but you can't control the other pranas. You can't change your temperature voluntarily. Of course, yogis can do that, because if they have full control of the prana, they can control everything. That is why when Thakur went into Samadhi, he was under full control. He could stop the prana, and at will, he could come back. Medically, of course, the doctors would not believe that. How can a person who is physiologically dead, the prana has been withdrawn, it was not separated. When a person dies, the prana leaves the body, and then it doesn't enter again. But so much was Sri Krishna able to control that all the pranas he could withdraw at will. That is what a yogi attempts to attain. So when the body, but for most of us, the beginners, Patanjali says it is very difficult to control the mind. So you start with the body. So when the body is sufficiently controlled, you can control the mind. First is asana, and first yama and niyama. Of course, we will not discuss that. It's a long training which we have to give. Only if we practice all the moral disciplines, ethical disciplines, then only we can have a steady asana. If there are no restrictions in our life, if everybody is moving around according to his whims and fancies, then it is very difficult for such a person even to physically sit quietly. You might have seen some restless people. It is a huge punishment for them if they are asked to sit for 1 hour doing nothing. Forget meditation. You just tell all you have to do is sit for 1 hour and just relax. But they will be itching. The prana will tell them, go there, go do this, do that. So, body is sufficiently. That is why he says, full control you will never have. That is why Patanjali says, don't wait till you become an expert in asana or an expert in pranayama. Then your whole life you'll be doing only that. And when will you do? So you have to just, Swamiji says in his introduction, when the body is sufficiently controlled, more or less, everybody knows how long he can sit or how much more he can sit. So that is known only to us, how much restless we are physically. Mentally, of course, it takes a lot of time. But the gross, of course, you have to understand, by controlling the gross or the physical body is the first step, because it is less powerful than the mind. So, finer, that is super, that is our mind, is the cause. So we are what we are because of our thoughts. Buddha uses the opposite technique. That's why he does not believe in asanas and all those things. He says first follow the ethical discipline, the moral discipline, then automatically asana and pranayama will happen. If you lead a regulated life, if you lead a happy life, if you follow all the rules which lead to goodness by helping others, then your health automatically, the first 3 steps are included in Buddha's ethical conduct. After that he says there is no need to perform asana or pranayama separately. But Patanjali says it is more scientific after yama and niyama. Yama means external control. External means there are many things you can control externally. Dhamma, yama and niyama. Niyama means they are internal controls. External controls are very easy. Don't do this, don't do that. You can tell. Even a child can follow it. But niyama is different because it is internal control, like happiness, contentment, shaucha, internal purity. Now nobody can follow. Externally you may say, okay, you should not dirty your house or you should always take a bath. So yama is very easy, niyama is very difficult because it is internal control. The internal control is known only to yourself. So if you are not content, you can take away some objects from a child, but if he is not content, he is not practicing internal disciplines. So Patanjali says both internal and external control of the body is required, and also the mind is required. So the finer is the cause and the sthula is its effect. So if you have a wrong way of thinking, it will impact the body and the prana and everything, and then the personality suffers. So Swami Vivekananda now discusses a very key point. He says in yoga, especially Patanjali's yoga, it is the internal control of the internal which is emphasized to control the external. Whereas all other systems, many other systems, they'll say first control the external, but Patanjali is in a hurry. He wants to start immediately. Don't wait till you become an expert in asana and pranayama. You can do it simultaneously to give some kind of control, sufficient control over your mind. Then you focus more on the mind. That is why definition of yoga is chitta vritti nirodha. He doesn't say yoga is to control the body or yoga is to control the prana. He doesn't skip. He says do only that much which is necessary. Start immediately with pratyahara. Don't waste time. Otherwise, you will get stuck at Hatha Yoga or this asana and pranayama business, which most of us understand by the word yoga. Yoga has been trivialized. But Patanjali wants to say that it is the one who controls internal nature, or the mind can easily control external if he wants. So, but the goal of the yogi, according to Patanjali, is to control both external and internal. They give importance to external because a person who has internal control, and if he shows that he has no external control, then something is wrong. So internal control should lead to external control. So, but then Swamiji says the difference between Western and Eastern cultures is basically this. The West focused on controlling external nature, and the East focused on controlling the internal nature. But he says both are right and both are wrong because they need to complement each other. If you are very haphazard and shabby in external control, you see, for example, the manners and all the etiquette, that is why Swami Yatiswaranji used to say, before you become a yogi, at least first try to become a gentleman. Though it is a typical Western word, gentleman means very moderate in your behavior, very controlled externally. Even if you are angry, don't show your anger. Behave yourself in a dignified way. So he says, it is better to have external control first. Be a gentleman, then you will be a yogi automatically. Then you can aspire to be a yogi. But both are right. So according to Swamiji, you can't say that the Western people are all wrong and then they believe too much in external control, external discipline. Like, for example, if you see the idea of a army where so much of external discipline, parades, and then people get, in India it is not very common to do things in a very organized way because there is lot of internal control. His mind may be controlled, but externally he is like a Paramahamsa. He will do whatever he wants. Whereas Swamiji says, no, that is not correct. Internal control definitely is necessary, but that doesn't mean you should neglect external control. So both are right if the limits of knowledge in the particular fields. Now, when you control externally, you know there is a limit to which you can control external nature. Beyond that, you cannot control. You can control your health to a certain extent. You can't guarantee that by external control, by right exercise, right food, I will have excellent health. Because there is a limit. There are many things, many hidden causes, and you can have diseases in spite of your best efforts. So overemphasis on external control or the control of the body also is not possible or is not desirable. And excessive control, saying that my mind is under control, I don't care what happens to the body, that is also bad. So Swamiji says, since mind and matter are one, you have to have a harmonious control of the body and the mind. Don't overemphasize anything. If you feel that only mind control is important, let the body follow it, then it becomes difficult because they are one. You just can't ignore the body. Of course, if you have certain diseases, like Sri Ramakrishna had cancer, there are so many diseases Swamiji himself had. But that doesn't mean that you just can ignore that. Even Thakur Sri Ramakrishna took medicines. He also used to say, he cooperated with the doctor also. Said, you give whatever medicine you like. But at the same time, he gave more emphasis because he knew it is the mind that controls the body, not the body controlling the mind. So, but the aim of any science, whether it is physical science of chemistry, physics, or any other science, or the mental science, that is yoga, is to find a unity. Somewhere, matter, mind, everything merges in something which is known as pure consciousness. And Swamiji says, India found, not that they were not aware of the external sciences. They made lot of progress in Ayurveda, in many other sciences, in external sciences, in mathematics, in gravitation. So many wonderful discoveries were made. Indian science was, a lot of effort was made to study external science. The astronomy, the wonderful science of astronomy, how they could, uh, sitting in their homes by observation, they could exactly predict the different phases of the moon, the position of the stars. Everything was very highly developed. So they were externally capable of uh, design, but they understood that mere external control or external discovery is not enough. We have to balance it with internal discovery. Now, Swamiji comes next point in our, the next discussion in his introduction is, he says, without understanding the philosophy of Sankhya, there are 6 systems of philosophy in India. So, Nyaya, Vaisheshika. Nyaya means logic. Vaisheshika is, you may say, material science, the science of atoms. Vaisheshika deals more with the objects, the objective world. And then they go try to find out in depth. So, Vaisheshika and Nyaya are clubbed together. Then we have Sankhya and Yoga, Patanjali's Yoga, which is based on Sankhya philosophy. That is why you cannot ignore Sankhya. That is why Swamiji says, before we study yoga, let us see what is the philosophy of Sankhya upon which the philosophy of yoga or the technique of yoga is based. So to understand yoga without understanding Sankhya is not possible. That is why Sankhya and yoga are 2 schools. And then finally we have Purva Mimamsa and Uttar Mimamsa. That is the study of Vedas, Vedanta, and the Karma Kanda of the Vedas. So there were 6 schools which were people followed. Some people liked Nyaya, some people liked, but all these 6 systems were studied by people who were keen to understand Indian philosophy. So Swamiji very briefly discusses, because yoga is possible. Even an intellectual understanding of yoga is not possible if one does not know what Sankhya says. The philosophy of Sankhya is the basis upon which the yoga is, the philosophy of yoga or the techniques of yoga are designed. So he says, very simply put, let us not go into detailed exposition of Sankhya philosophy, because that is not our goal. Whatever Swamiji felt is important for the Western world or for the newcomer, that we'll discuss. So he says, Sankhya is a very nice philosophy. We have the world outside. There are external objects. Then, how do we come in contact with those external objects? Through our indriyas, external indriyas. Now, this is a very important point. That I see. How does the eye see? The reflection of the objects that we see is the light falls and then it reflects in the retina, but then that is the external organ. Suppose your eye is damaged, you will not see. Physically, you will not see. But is that the whole of sight? There is an internal organ also which conveys that to the brain, and then your mind receives the impressions. So external objects come in contact with outer organs first. You hear sound, you see things, you taste things. So there are 5 external organs which are known as karmendriya. Then what happens is, all the information of the external which is received by an instrument of the external organs, they are like instruments. They are like cameras. They will take the picture, but they will not interpret it. They will send it to the manas. So this is very important, because then we understand what the 5 koshas are, which is a Vedantic topic. We will not discuss there. But they say the external organ gives it to the internal organs, Gyanendriya, Gyanendriyas give it to, Gyanendriya means knowledge organs. External organs just takes the picture, but it is Gyanendriya which interprets that this is a cow, this is a table, this is a tree, and that information is conveyed to the manas, mind. So mind, it is the mind which is presented with all the data and the facts that the organs are sending. Constantly they are sending. We are hearing, we are seeing, we are tasting, we are touching. The karmendriyas are always in close connection on one side with the objects of the external world and on the other side with the Gyanendriya. Gyanendriya just gives it to the mind, which is the lower mind, manas. Then that manas says, now all this data is there. What shall I do with this? Then it gives it to buddhi. And now you decide. Now if you see a tiger, now you decide what to do. If you see a tiger, the buddhi will tell you, now you run. But if your buddhi is not working, then you will just see the tiger and stand there. So the determinative faculty, that information has to be passed. It happens very fast. We see certain things and we immediately react. Manas itself can react based on previous experience, but it is the buddhi who decides. That information is passed to the Purusha. Purusha means the observer. So there is somebody who observes, who always feels, I am seeing this object. I never think that somebody else, you may feel that others are also seeing the same object. But if that person is colorblind, you may say, can you see the green grass? If you ask one of our devotees, he sees green as orange. He'll say, Maharaj, the green, it is not green, it is orange. So a colorblind person will see the world according to his perception. So everything, the decision is given to the observer, and depending on the observer, the reality is seen. So it is also accepted by science. They say the external phenomena is an observer-based reality. They are coming to the conclusions of this yoga. What is discussed here is very close to the present quantum physics, where they say there is no reality outside. The reality that you see or the quantum physicist observes, it is related to the observer. So they say it is observer-related reality. They will never say it is absolute reality. What the observer sees, observer becomes a participator in the phenomena of the world. So if there is no consciousness, if there is no Purusha, then Prakriti is helpless. This is a very fundamental thing we have to understand, that though we are part of Prakriti, there is a Purusha which you cannot deny. The Purusha, without the Purusha, Prakriti is powerless. It is like the power of the snake, you cannot imagine without the snake itself. The snake has to be there. This is a crude example, but Sri Ramakrishna gives that example. He says fire and its burning power. You can't say there is this burning, everything is burning, but there is no fire. If the fire is there, then only the burning power is there. So if the consciousness is there, you will have all this mind, buddhi, mana, buddhi, ahankara, chitta. So there is that famous Nirvana, the verses on Nirvana by 6 stanzas on Nirvana by Shankaracharya. So to find who this Purusha is, he says, Mana, Buddhya, Ahankara, Chittani Naham. Nacha Shrotra Jiva. I am not these Indriyas, I am not the outer organs, I am not the inner organs, I am not even the mind. Mana, I am not even the buddhi. So you go in the reverse order. And Shankaracharya says that these stanzas on Nirvana will make you free and unite you with the Purusha, which is the goal of yoga. Because according to Sankhya philosophy, everything that is not Purusha is material. Purusha is the conscious principle. So we are a mixture. In fact, our own existence is a mixture of pure consciousness of the Purusha and all the forces, matter, mind, everything of the Prakriti. So somehow Prakriti and Purusha have got mixed and we get confused. The Purusha thinks he is weak, he is a material thing, he is a mind. But yoga tells you separate the Purusha and the Prakriti using the powers of Prakriti itself. Vedanta says it is like burning the fire with fire. You know, in forest fires, when there is a forest fire, it is very strange, but we have observed it. In Mayavati also they do it. Suddenly there is a forest fire and it will come and engulf the building, wooden building. So what they do is when it is far off, they will light a fire 10 or 20 feet away from the fire. And strangely, that fire goes and gobbles up that fire and the fire is extinguished. So fire burns fire. Prakriti cannot be transcended without the help of Prakriti. So Vidya Maya, as Thakur said, or Vidya Prakriti, has to be used, and Patanjali shows how to use the positive Prakriti to control the negative and then go beyond both. It is like removing a thorn with another thorn, a thorn which is stuck into the foot, and then throwing away both the thorns. So all except Purusha are material. And only when they two mix together, there is suffering. So the goal of, like Buddha said, this whole world is full of suffering. When will suffering end? When you separate this mixture of Purusha and Prakriti. That is known as Kaivalya, or it can be known as Nirvana, or in Vedanta we'll call it Moksha. Freedom from what? Freedom from these clutches of Prakriti. So, from Buddhi to gross matter, from Sukshma to Sthula, it is all one existence that is known as Prakriti. So, when you say Prakriti, it includes the physical universe, it includes the Sthula Sharira, the universal mind. In Vedanta, they explain very nicely. They say Virat. Virat means the combination, the whole physical world and forces, life forces. All combination of everything, animals, plants, stones, universes, galaxies, anything that is physical is, when you say it is the sum total of that, you call it Virat. The same Virat, the sum total of all the universal mind, my mind, your mind, the animal's mind, it may be crude, it may be not as advanced or as full of buddhi. Some people have more buddhi, some people have developed less buddhi, but all the minds, they are known as Hiranyagarbha. And all the individual consciousnesses, now they look as individual. I have a consciousness, you have a consciousness, the animal has a consciousness. Now they feel they are different. That is why Sankhya says there are individual consciousness are infinite in number. Whereas Advaita will say there is only one consciousness. It appears to be small. It appears to be, that is why they say International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So there is a Krishna consciousness, there is a individual consciousness, and I merge my consciousness with that Krishna consciousness, which is the ultimate prajna, they call it prajna. So prajna, Hiranyagarbha, Sthula, Sukshma, and Sthula is Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and prajna. So at that level, we travel from the more subtle to the more gross. And mind is the only instrument we have, which is Sukshma, which is our window to the world. If you don't have the mind, there is no external world. How do you perceive the external world? Indriyas may be there. But if the mind with the prana, if it leaves the body, eyes are there, ears are there, everything is there, body is lying there. But it is not able to see anything. So that shows this consciousness is connected with the mind, and the mind is the most important instrument. Yoga, just as for an astronomer, telescope is the main thing. There may be hundreds of types of telescopes, but there is no astronomy without telescopes. Similarly, without mind, there is no yoga. Yoga begins and ends with the control of the mind. And what is the nature of the mind now? We'll come to that. We have just 6 minutes. So, I'll just mention the nature of the mind which we are using to study. Without knowing the nature, how can you control it? Suppose you don't know the nature of a dog. You don't know whether it bites, and you are just told, take this dog and control it. First you'll say, no, I want to know whether he bites, what kind of dog he is. Then you can control it. So Patanjali says, this mind, the nature of the mind has to be very clear. What does the mind do? How does it act? What are its properties? So that we'll discuss in the next class. So 5 or 6 principles I'll just mention, but we will have to discuss it in great detail in the next class. Swamiji says 5 things. Mind has 5 properties. It has many properties, but the main properties is a mind is always changing, constantly changing. Otherwise, you will not call it a mind. If the mind is steady, it is not a mind because it becomes one with Purusha. The very fact that it is constantly changing, we call it a mind. Mind is constituted of thoughts. This is very simple. Now, the other second property of mind is it can attach to the internal as well as external organs. So you know what a mind can do. Mind is changing, and at the same time it can attach to external and internal organs. So then a perfected mind, now this is very important. Imperfect mind can do many things, but perfected mind, mind you, can be attached to all the organs simultaneously. So that is why you find Sri Ramakrishna's awareness was so sharp. He used to say, I'm in Samadhi, but I don't forget my towel. So there's absolutely no forgetfulness. He is aware of everything, who is doing what. Once he sees, it is like a photographic memory, he would remember. Because his perfected mind can be attached to all organs simultaneously. We cannot do it. So in a way, if at all you want to do multitasking, by attaching the mind to all the different organs, your mind has to be a perfected mind. Only a perfected mind can do. If we attempt multitasking, we will fail. It is better we do one task at a time. But Patanjali says, only a perfected mind, like that of Thakur, could be attached to all the organs simultaneously. So he could see, at the same time he could hear, and he was so alert. He once scolded Latu Maharaj that, see, I am in Samadhi, I am always in giving talks and going to Samadhi, coming down. But before I leave the room, I don't forget my towel. Because his eyes are there, his mind is so sharp. But Patanjali says that mind can attach itself to one or more organs, but only in a perfected mind, Swamiji says, he is really capable of multitasking. So the more perfect your mind is, you can multitask. But for a beginner, it is better to not do multitasking, because then many of the things will be done improperly. So it's better to do a single task. And then the fourth property is, it's the mind which has the power to observe itself. Because mind is the instrument. Your mind only can know whether your mind is happy, whether it is angry, whether anger is coming. There is one part of the mind which is like a witness to the other part of the mind which is restless. This technique, the more you do yoga, you can be your own guru or you can be your own guide. But for that, you need to have that kind of intuitive mind or buddhi. And a yogi, a perfected yogi, this is a very important thing because Sri Ramakrishna could do that, can perceive all the different mental states of different people because they raise themselves to such a height that they see things as they see our minds, they can read our minds, they can understand the state of our mind, they can feel the vibrations of our mind, read the thoughts, because they are one, it is a perfected mind. So the goal of yoga is to attain to that state of perception. With this mind only when it is evolved by a process of yoga, it can perceive the different mental states very easily. So it becomes a witness. Then our mind can tell our lower mind, now you don't be angry. Now we can't do that because before we understand, our anger has already been expressed. But a perfected yogi will say, just wait, just wait. The situation is uh, forcing you to get angry, but you tell the mind, lower mind, that you should not be angry. So that control, the capacity to perceive the different mental states and control the different mental state is also another property. So we'll now, before we start the next topic, which is preliminary preparations to start yoga, because all this is part of the introduction of Swamiji. Before even we discuss the sutras, he will give us a lot of uh, information about how we can prepare to start the study of Raj Yoga. See, we are still, everybody wants to rush, but you can't rush. Here we have to understand everything clearly. And Swamiji writes such a long introduction so that he wants to make sure that you understand the process and with which, because there is no other external instrument to study your mind. A part of your mind uses the other part of the mind to study the phenomena, your interaction with people outside, your interaction with yourself, your internal states, and your reaction to the world outside. Everything is done by one mind. So our laboratory, unlike physical sciences, which has laboratory equipment, we have telescopes, we have microscopes, we have so many gadgets which are external. But here he says your laboratory is your own mind. And you have to do it alone. Unfortunately, that is the problem. You have to enter into, of course you can get guidance just as you get manual. It is like asking a person, here is the manual and you drive the car now. It's so difficult. That is why they say this, here the manual is given by Patanjali, but he says all these things you have to do. The manual will guide you how to observe your mind. Every step it will guide you. If you follow that manual properly, that is Raj Yoga, Patanjali says you will reach the goal. So that much initial faith is necessary, but you don't have to believe in God. You don't have to believe in any external force. You have to believe in yourself. That is why it is comes under the category of science. So science, you have to have belief in the instrument that you are using, the methodology that you are using, and you have to prove that the results are true. Then you can succeed in making a discovery. So we will conclude. Ritvish?
Yeah, okay, Maharaj.
If there are some questions, you can just ask. Otherwise, we will conclude.
No, Maharaj. Maharaj, just one point is where is Buddhi? Is it the lower mind or the upper mind?
Buddhi is obviously upper mind. Higher mind.
Higher.
Upper, there's no upper or lower. It's a higher or lower.
Higher or lower.
Manas is obviously lower mind. Manas is the reactive mind. Buddhi is the higher discriminative mind, which takes decisions. So Manas, what it does, it presents all the facts. It's like provides all the data to the only thing Manas does is, it gathers information from the objects outside through the Indriyas and presents it to the Buddhi. So unless the Buddhi acts, mind is just a slave to the buddhi.
Got it.
But if you allow the buddhi to, buddhi is not developed in many people, then what happens is the mind takes its own decisions. It's like allowing the horse to run wherever it wants. You know, if the driver is not there or the horse carriage will go, it will all depend on the horses. So there has to be a controller. So if you imagine our body is like a chariot, the horses are like the senses, the reins are like the mind. It only transmits, it gives the controlling power to the driver, but the driver has to be there. The charioteer has to be there to control the horses and the carriage. That is the idea. So that is the difference between mind and manas and buddhi.
Thank you, Maharaj. But there was a question that when is the next session? The next session is 20th of July.
Next session, according to your this thing, it should 20th. Okay, fine.
It will be a Saturday, not a Sunday. You have your
why?
There's the Guru Purnima on.
Okay. So so next session is on Saturday.
Saturday, not a Sunday.
Okay.
We'll do a day.
Okay.
Something has a question.
Oh, Indrani.
You can ask.
Maharaj, this is Maharaj Pranam. This is Prasenjit. I'm Indrani's husband. I had a question, Maharaj. Maharaj, as a householder, if we want to get started on the Patanjali yoga system of meditation, is it okay to try meditating on one's own, or is it sort of best to do that with a guidance of somebody who's trained or a guru, or can one just get started?
No, Patanjali's yoga. Obviously, the question is if one is in the household, whether it is a householder or anybody else, also the same rule applies. That you need a qualified teacher to even teach you Patanjali's yoga. Even the simple asanas you can't do on your own. So the need is there, but in our tradition at least, we don't strictly follow Patanjali's yoga. Our sadhana or the gurus in our tradition, they follow a combination of Patanjali's yoga, a little bit of Vedanta, and also the science of Nama Japa, that is Tantras, which is known as the philosophy of Tantras is based on the philosophy of Shakti. So it is nothing but Prakriti. The Prakriti of yoga is nothing but the Shakti of the Tantras. So in that, you use a certain Bija mantras and the mantras to control the mind, control your subconscious mind. Conscious mind you can do through Patanjali, but Tantras say that the Bijas have a calming effect on the mind if it is done properly. So it has some inherent power. So the sadhana that is prescribed in our order, at least, I don't know about other traditions, there may be gurus who teach exclusively Patanjali's yoga, but in our tradition it's a combination of Patanjali's yoga, where it's a combination of, and Vedanta, the principles of Vedanta, also the principles of Sankhya, and also the principles of Shakti Puja or Shakti worship, which led to the science of Tantras, which includes Mantra Shastra. Okay?
Ratna has a question.
Yeah.
You can ask her to ask.
Thanks, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah. Okay? Yeah.
You can ask Ratna to ask a question.
I can't. Anyway, is there any other question?
Ratna.
Oh, what is the question? Ratna is there?
Ratna, are you there?
On Zoom.
Oh, on Zoom, sorry, Maharaj.
On Zoom, okay. You can ask.
She has been unmuted, but she's not asking her question, so I'm asking you to request.
She wants to ask a question, but she is unable to ask a question. So if you type the question on the chat.
Unmuted. She has been unmuted.
Huh?
She has been unmuted.
Unmuting is not possible on Zoom right now. We can unmute, but we are simultaneously on Google Meet, Zoom, and YouTube Live. So if you can just type, it is good.
She has been unmuted.
Well, she has been unmuted. That's what she's saying. Okay.
She has been unmuted. So Ratna, you can go ahead. Ratna can ask the question if you have been unmuted.
So maybe some technology challenge.
Yeah. So it's better if you know where the chat is. You can just type your question, then it becomes easy. So one who is running Zoom here, our volunteer, he can ask the question on your behalf. So in future, you just remember, if you have to ask a question on Zoom, you better type it. Okay? Okay, so we'll conclude.
Pranam Maharaj.
Namaste. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.